What's up, guys? Welcome to the Outer Nexus. Tonight, we are going to check out what these gaming corporations are up to this time.
Yep.
So we're going to check out this article about what happened to Palworld. So Nintendo sued the shit out of Palworld, the Palworld developers, and they didn't. And so Palworld, if you don't know what Palworld is, it is a game that physically resembles Pokemon. Like if you
Yes.
look at these creatures, they look like Pokemon. And there are some game mechanics that are similar to Pokemon, but it's really not a Pokemon game. It's
No.
much more like a survival craft game like Ark or something. And it did really well. Palworld did phenomenal. Like there is an entire audience of players who would like a game exactly like that, and it's very clear that Nintendo is not delivering for them. However, Palworld really is not the direction that I think most Pokemon players would really enjoy, would like to see from Nintendo. But either way, the point is that even still, with all that, Nintendo went way out of their way just to sue the shit out of them, and get these specific game mechanics removed. The ability to capture a creature in a ball and not capture it, but to throw the ball and it pop out. So like you could determine where you throw the ball.
The thing is, it gets very specific with it.
Yeah.
Like it's not just the ball.
Yeah.
No, it's not just the capturing. Like they get specific to like the throwing and the opening. Like Nintendo like patented, and a lot of companies do this, by the way. It's not just Nintendo.
Yeah.
But they patent like every step of the way.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, it's a Pokeball and you throw it in a No, like all of that is patents the whole way down.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. Let's dissect this. So hold on, let me pull this up. Palworld confirms disappointing game changes forced by Pokemon lawsuit. I think this might even be one of the first times I've ever heard of a lawsuit enacting mechanics changes in this manner. I can't think of anything else that would be similar.
No, yeah, I'm pretty sure there are, but this is not like, that not that you hear of normally.
Not that you hear about normally. Yeah. This is like a new precedent. Like this is really obvious and out there and absurd.
And it's also because it's Pokemon.
And because it's Pokemon. So patching out various features related to Nintendo's lawsuit. Palworld developer Pocket Pair has confirmed significant game changes it claims were forced by the ongoing lawsuit from Nintendo. Nintendo and the Pokemon Company filed a lawsuit against Pocket Pair in Japan last year, alleging that Palworld infringes on 3 patents that are related to monster catching gameplay, all of which were initially filed by Nintendo and the Pokemon Company between February and July last year. Palworld was released on January 19th, 2024. On Thursday, Pocket Pair confirmed that it had previously patched out the ability to summon pals via pal spheres due to the legal action, and confirmed that further changes were coming in order to avoid disrupting future development and releases. On November 30th, 2024, we released this patch for Palworld. This patch removed the ability to summon pals by throwing pal spheres and instead changed it to a static summon next to the player. Several of the other game mechanics were also changed with this patch. As many have speculated, these changes were indeed a result of ongoing litigation. Everyone here at Pocket Pair was disappointed that this adjustment had to be made, and we fully understand that many players feel the same frustration. Unfortunately, as the alternative would have led to even greater deterioration of the gameplay experience for players, it was determined that this change was necessary. Oh, man.
Yeah.
In addition, Pocket Pair said that with the implementation of this current patch this week, we must make yet another compromise. From this patch onward, gliding will be performed using a glider rather than with pals. This is the crazier one, in my opinion. Pals in the player's team will still provide passive buffs to gliding, but players will now need to have a glider in their inventory in order to glide. We understand that this will be disappointing for many, just as it is for us, but we hope our fans understand that these changes are necessary in order to prevent further disruptions to the development of Palworld. Holy shit, man. In a series of preparatory briefs filed in February, Pocket Pair argues that Nintendo's patents in suit shouldn't have been granted. Yeah. Like that, it's so crazy. What's your opinion on this?
Well, I mean, what you were getting in there right there was is a big important one. They were saying that it shouldn't be allowed because Nintendo themselves have used these mechanics in other games. Or have allowed the use of them in other games. For instance, like the gliding. It's used all over in the new Zelda games. And so that's kind of their point, is like Nintendo's using it in other places. Like, granted, some of that is their patent, but they're showing like you have to let another company use it. So it's like,
well, the whole thing with not being able to ride your pals in to glide. How the fuck can they?
How do you patent that?
How do you patent that?
Yeah, like everybody's
just because you were the first person, you were the first game to come up with riding on a flying creature. No, that's not even true. Like Blizzard could just step right in. Like any game where you have mounts where you could ride them, you could fly them. Any game where you could fly mounts.
Well, I mean, even if you go back to like the earliest days of like television, I'm pretty sure there's a dude, a caveman riding a pterodactyl somewhere in there. It's like the idea has been around for a long time. So it's weird, yes, that they're able to patent something like that, and it's like
it reeks of, and this is what a lot of people are saying. It's that Nintendo is more willing to go through this kind of shit instead of make a good game, make an actual game that people want. They're willing to go through all of this to try to prevent others from making. So not even like Pokemon. Palworld isn't even like Pokemon.
The thing is with Nintendo, and this is the key.
It's the image.
No. It's the key to Nintendo. The key to their marketing strategy, and this is it, is that you can't go anywhere else to get these certain things. So if you want Mario, you are going to Nintendo.
Right.
You want Pokemon, you're going to Nintendo.
There cannot be anything else like these.
So that's why they're so hard on litigation, is because they want it to be like, if you want this experience,
you have to come
here.
You
have to come here.
And see, the thing is, that totally works for things like Mario, Metroid, Legend of Zelda. You could go down that list. But when you get to Pokemon, you're just talking about a generic RPG. You're going into generic RPG mechanics. You know what I mean?
You are, but they don't want they don't want you to be able to get another game that has a similar feel. That's why they attack games.
It's like the image.
It's an image in a way. It's the
because I could totally see that Nintendo would be pissed about just the concept of kids going onto YouTube and seeing Palworld and like the Pokemon with guns and confusing that with real Pokemon and them not wanting their Pokemon to be associated with guns. And I think that was one of the major contentions that Nintendo had, is they really did not like that they were portraying the Pokemon with guns, but there's nothing they could do about it because they made their own game.
No, but I mean, there was a Pokemon episode with a gun, but that besides
but
it was banned in the US. So. But yes, there are certain things like that, but I don't actually think that's their main point of contention either.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, like you said, I think it's mainly that they want to hit these different things, like the gliding and in Legend of Zelda.
But the thing is, there's so many games.
It's a feel.
I mean, I guess, but I feel like there's other games that Nintendo could have gone after with these specific things. Maybe not.
They sometimes they go after a lot of games, and sometimes they go after them quietly. And I think the thing is they do go after other people. It's just you don't hear about it because it's not as broad as Pokemon and Palworld. Because people were pumped up about Palworld because it's like finally someone's trying to break that nutshell open, and now we don't have to just depend on Nintendo for a game like this.
Yeah.
And granted, they did. Palworld's done fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think that it's Nintendo just trying to again protect the feel of playing a certain game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels like I was saying before, that these lawsuits are just kind of getting more and more frivolous. And I just saw this one. Moist Critical covered this. I'm just going to throw this up here. It's not as I think it's more absurd. Bungie's attempt to dismiss Destiny 2 copyright case using YouTube videos describing vaulted elements of the game has been shut down by a judge who is not going to sit through a 10-hour lore explainer. And this is amazing. I don't know what's going on here with this. Let's see. Oh man.
I heard on this one,
yeah,
that again, I didn't read any of it. I didn't, watch the little video that went with it, but I heard that it was vaulted. That was actually one of the problems. Is like the judge was like, produce this,
yeah,
and the company actually came back and was like, it's in the vault. We can't get it. And I mean, I don't know if this
so is this like, okay, is this where they lock away portions of content and they can't go back and get it?
Yeah, and then, well, I mean, according to this, vaulted elements of the game has been shut down by a judge who is not going to. And then I guess the other part of that was he was not going to sit there for 10 hours to listen to why this was an okay thing to do.
Let's see. In October 2024, science fiction writer Matt Kelsey Martineau accused Bungie of lifting ideas for its first Destiny 2 campaign from a story published on his blog under the pseudonym Casper Cole. While some of the ideas in question are fairly generic sci-fi elements like consciousness transfer and the use of emergency failsafes to prevent disasters, both storylines involve groups called the Red Legion who use flamethrowers and trained hounds of war. It's entirely possible that's a coincidence, but Bungie is struggling to prove it since all of the relevant parts of Destiny 2 are now unplayable and tucked away in the vault. Among the many problems with live service games is the way that they eat themselves. Yes, rendering parts of the game inaccessible when they're overwritten by new material, made redundant, or just trimmed to get the install size down. In the case of Destiny 2, that began when the Beyond Light expansion launched and the original Red War campaign, as well as its 2 follow-ups, were put in the Destiny 2 content vault. New players would never get to be baffled by them, and they would instead have to settle for being baffled by whatever Bungie puts in their place. While Bungie always maintained that their old Destiny 2 material is just sitting in the vault for now, when the lawsuit was filed, it suddenly turned out that material in the vault couldn't be restored. Oh,
yeah, so it was vaulted.
The engine had been updated and it simply wasn't possible to restore the Red War. Instead, Bungie insisted the attached videos are the best possible way for the court to review the accused work. The videos in question included as Exhibit B, a 10-hour lore video put together by YouTuber My Name is Biff. Oh my God. Exhibit C is a cutscene compilation, again, put together by a fan that's a mere 2 hours and 40 minutes long. As the Game Post reports, Judge Susie Morgan does not have the time for that nonsense. When Bungie filed a motion to dismiss the case using only citations from the Destinypedia fan wiki and ridiculously long YouTube videos, the judge disregarded it. The court will not consider the exhibits attached to defendant's motion to dismiss and will not convert the defendant's motion to dismiss to a motion for summary judgment. The decision went, there has not been sufficient time for discovery and the attachments are admittedly of third-party origination. Their authenticity has not been established, which means the copyright infringement court case is going ahead after all. It sure would be nice if this served as some kind of warning that sunsetting huge chunks of video games just to keep the treadmill grinding on isn't worthwhile. But given how much money the companies are at the pointy end of the live service war are making out of them, I wouldn't hold your breath. Oh my God, there's so much meat in there too. Like just the fact that Destiny 2 basically deletes large portions of its content That's
Yeah.
just kind of crazy to me. I don't know. If you're an MMO, that is the opposite of what you should be doing.
It is, yeah. Well, the thing is, when they were talking about Classic WoW back in the time,
Yeah.
when Classic WoW was going to be announced, there were fears, and I mean, that were being brought up. Granted, I don't know how founded, and we now know that Classic went through.
Yeah.
But I heard they were even coming from Blizzard that they may not be able to like put the Classic game back together.
Yes, and I believe that's accurate. They had to work with a very large vanilla WoW private server
to like fill in the pieces.
Fill in some of the pieces.
Yeah.
And it's actually based around the Legion engine. Classic WoW is based around the Legion engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think a lot of companies do this, but I think with the litigation that's coming up like this, I think they're gonna have to start like actually like vaulting, but in a good way. Like, here is this one.
Yeah.
Here is this one. And then they can pull them out if they need them later.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to be the best way to do it. I always thought that was the way they did it, for a long time. And then I realized when the WoW thing came up, I was like, man, I don't think these companies are like saving their old stuff.
Which is just mind blowing to me. It's mind blowing that you wouldn't save your original things.
Yeah. But and you can even see this sometimes though in other media too. It's like, there's that big story about the lady who saved old television.
Yeah.
Some lady in her house who was just recording TV.
Yeah.
She had TVs and Betamax players and VCRs set up.
Yep.
And she was just recording television.
Yeah.
And she did this straight 24/7 for like 40 years.
Well, I think it was from the late 70s to the early 2000s, something like that.
Yeah, she did it for a long time. And then, some of these television shows,
like the old television
were
shows
gone.
Yeah.
Like, they're just gone. Like, there's no original copies left, nothing. And so the only way to get it was to go through her archive.
Yeah.
Like, so these things do disappear from even other media. So it's,
yeah. I mean, it's pretty wild to think about, but these video game lawsuits are getting a little ridiculous, and mechanics in video games are getting a little ridiculous as well. So Blizzard, just as we were talking about WoW, decided to introduce rotation assist. So this is kind of unusual. So the feature is based on the mod Hekili, which displays to you what move you should be using next in your rotation. It's actually pretty useful. But this one seems like it's literally going to be a one-button version of this.
It does both.
It does both. Okay.
So the first thing that it does is it will highlight the button on your action bar, wherever it is, saying that's what you should use next.
Yeah.
And it does take things into account. It takes into account like how many things are in the range, in range of you.
Yeah.
So like if you have a single shot versus a multi-shot, it should know when to do that.
Yeah.
It takes into account certain talents that you have, and what things are on cooldown. So it does do all of that. And when you do that, there is no penalty. It's just showing you this is what you should use next, according to their DPS charts.
Yeah.
And they said they're going to keep those DPS charts updated so that when they update something, it should also know to do it, even though there may be a slight delay between the two. But the big one that's everyone's talking about,
the very controversial one,
is one button. So it takes that same idea where it's going to show you, and it's just, you can hit one button and it'll rotate to the next thing that you should use. There is a penalty of 0.2 global cooldown seconds. So it slows you down.
Yeah.
But it's always using the best thing.
Yeah.
So it's, for certain people, this is definitely a jump up. This is not something that will help the top players at all.
No.
It's only there to bump the base.
Yeah. And I think this is kind of new information to me about this minor penalty involved, and I think a lot of people weren't too clear on that, whether there was going to be that.
0.2 second
Yeah,
global cooldown.
because I think that will actually separate,
That's what it's
those
meant to
people
do.
into that bracket.
Yes.
Basically, it won't be the optimal way to play.
No, and that was what Ian was trying to push. They want that to be there so that it cannot be the optimal way to play.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, if you use the normal one where it's just highlighting your own, action bar, then at that point you can play optimally.
Yeah.
And there's no penalty. So, I mean, if you kind of memorize like how it's doing it, you'll get better.
Yeah.
Like at your rotation. But if you're using the one single button, you could use spacebar even.
Yeah.
Like you could do it.
But yeah, I mean, this will be great for players who just want to see the content. They just want to go through the game and play with their friends and
that's
see
what
the
Ian
content.
was saying too.
And yeah, I'm sure this will be a pretty welcome feature to the game, because another angle of this, as this discussion came up, it called into question the sheer amount of craziness that happens in the WoW UI as is.
Yes.
And this sort of cuts the fat out of that,
Well, it cuts some of it. So if you've ever seen peak rating, during the time of, and granted it's still kind of here, but peak rating with all the UI active at once, like
it looks fucking crazy.
It looks like you could never understand what is going on your screen. And the thing is, if you're used to it, you can deal with it.
Yeah.
But if you're just looking at it and you're like, I want to play this game, and then they're like, this is what your end game looks like.
Yeah.
It's and
I think that's the other issue with this is this. I don't know whether it opens the door or closes the door to things getting more complicated on that end. Like
the whole point, and I think they said that this is where they're aiming. They wanted to close the door on that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping for. But in a certain way, I'm wondering if this will exacerbate that issue, because that is my current issue with WoW right now, is that the interface, and going along with what these guys are trying to do, it seems like they are being more willing. The WoW devs want to lean into add-ons now.
Yes, they want to take the spot of certain add-ons that have found niches because the game kind of needed them. And WoW has been very open about like, yes, please go get these if you think they're going to help. But now they want to be like, you shouldn't have to go get these.
No,
for certain things.
It seems like they are saying they want to lean into the add-ons. They want to support add-ons and be like, they still want
to support add-ons, but they want the add-ons to be like UI changers, like, oh, it looks better, like it's more graphical. They don't want it to be more of the mechanics of the game. That's why they start like this one. This was a big popular add-on that they're now saying is part of your game. That's what they want to do. The ones that feel like they're always necessary, they want to bring those in themselves.
I guess my contention with this, the thing that I'm trying to get at, is that having a scenario like this where you have this auto rotation, this rotation assist, suggests the idea that the mechanics in general are already a little too complicated,
for the average person.
For the average person. But I think there's got to be some sort of, I feel like there has to be an eventual engineered middle ground where you don't need something like this anymore.
Well, I think what's happening, and this is my own opinion. I think they're getting away from certain class fantasy. And what I really mean by that is, like, say you play an Affliction Warlock. You want to spread dots. And you want to just dot everything around you. But when they come out with an expansion, they're like, how do we expand upon the Affliction Warlock?
Yeah.
And most of the time it's we have to give them something.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time when they want to give them something, it's a new ability.
Right.
And it's like you don't always have to go to new ability all of the time. It's it's great to do occasionally, or you could just do like one new ability.
Yeah.
And have it really focus on what that specific spec does.
Yeah.
But they've really just been, because they're expanding the how, like from 70 to 80 and giving you new talents.
Yeah.
And they've done this,
yes,
a bunch of times now.
Yeah.
It's like now it's just a lot, and you're kind of moving away from like Affliction Warlock now to me doesn't feel like it's about spreading dots.
Yeah.
It's more about maintaining that malefic, enough dots there to malefic rupture a certain amount of. It's like I don't feel like I'm the Affliction Warlock I want to be.
Yeah.
And I think they need to kind of tone it down.
That's the thing, is that they've made it so they've blown it out so much, but the endpoints are these specific metas. Like you could make it as complicated as you want, but at the end of the day, people are only filing into these certain specs.
Yeah, well, and they generally they'll file into certain specs, but I think like I was getting at is I think it's more about the class fantasy behind the specs, and that they've bubbled them out so much.
Yeah.
Now what they need to do is pare them down.
Yeah.
Like you need to pare down some of these abilities.
Well, what I mean is that they have all these abilities that are available, and that's awesome if they were useful, but there only seems to be specific metas that everybody
specific abilities.
There's only specific talents and stuff that people choose.
Yeah.
And like I look at the talent trees now, and they're expansive. They have a lot going on in them.
Well,
there are a lot of, but there's really only a certain amount of meta that people go for.
And one of the things I'm noticing with the tree a lot of the time is there's normally a choice between an active new ability and a passive ability.
Yeah.
When you get to that level, and the meta is typically that new active ability, because if you're going for like the more damage, like 5%, 3% more, it's that ability.
Yeah.
Used very properly.
Yeah.
Or a passive ability that doesn't do quite as much, but is always there.
Yeah.
And I think that, not that you should make them equal, because, a passive versus,
right.
But maybe, again, pair some of these abilities out that aren't fitting into, what the developers at that point would think fits the class, the class anymore.
Yeah.
There are certain things that people like, with the Paladin, it has a ton of abilities.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, plays into their ability to support everyone.
Yes.
And it's like, maybe they don't have to support everyone.
Yeah.
Maybe they should be good at certain things and then support, like a Retribution Paladin would probably be really good at supporting a melee front.
Yeah.
So they should have abilities that, and then pair the other ones off.
Yeah.
A Holy Paladin probably has abilities that are really good for supporting a tank.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the backline.
Yeah.
And it's like, start toning them down so that the buttons, you can fit on a 1 through 9.
Yeah.
Your main, and you're not like thinking, oh, I got 1 through 9, and then the core, the core, and then the shift and the control.
Oh my god.
And because you a lot of times you don't just need 1 through 9 when you get into raiding.
Yeah.
You also need
shift 1 through 9.
You need like the shift 1 through 9, but you also need like a control version.
Yeah.
For like, target 1, target 2, target of tank, target of, and it's like you need those ones as well. So it makes like even the 1 through 9 becomes, 4 layers deep.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's where
ridiculous.
It gets ridiculous. And that's where you get that bulk. And I think, again, they should tone it down.
Yeah.
Not everyone has to be good at everything.
No.
I think we need to remember like the Pyro Mage.
Yeah.
That's what they did. 3 minutes. Every 3 minutes, someone gets to die.
Someone dies.
Yeah. And so I think we need to kind of.
I think that's what classic WoW was when classes were in simpler times.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the difference between retail and classic. And maybe retail will get its shit together, but who knows? But that might be it for this episode.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Like and subscribe. See you next time. It's a solid